like fire, like crystal, like the gleam of polished amber, like the color of a sapphire under noon light, like a rainbow that does not move, like the sound of an ocean that never stops crashing, and a voice underneath it that is somehow louder than the ocean. Like, that is the word. That is the word every single one of them reached for when they came back. Not one of them said, "Here's what it was." Every one of them said, "Here's what it was like." Because the thing they saw did not fit inside the words they owned. The most powerful men in the Bible, prophets who called down fire, a king who built a temple, an apostle who turned the Roman world upside down, all stood in front of the same room, and all of them came out stammering like children, pointing at the sky saying like, 9 of them, across 1,500 years, a shepherd running for his life, a murderer turned lawgiver, a prophet nobody believed, a priest in exile, a teenager in a den of lions who grew into an old man, a dying man with rocks in the air over his head, a missionary who refused to tell you what he saw, and an old exile on a prison island at the edge of the empire. They never met. Most of them never read each other. They lived in different centuries, spoke different languages, served under different empires. And yet, and this is the thing that should stop you cold, they described the same impossible room, the same fire, the same wheels, the same sea of glass, the same crushing weight of a holiness that knocks grown men face down into the dirt, the same threefold word shouted by burning creatures that no human voice was ever meant to repeat. And one more thing. In vision after vision, there is a second figure. Not the one on the throne, someone standing beside it. The seers can see him. They can describe him, but they cannot name him. Daniel watches him come on the clouds and has no word for who he is. A dying man stares at him and calls him only the Son of Man. Hold on to that figure. Because at the very end of the Bible, in the last throne vision ever recorded, he finally gets a name. And the name will not be the one you expect. So here's what we're going to do tonight. We are going to walk through every throne room vision in Scripture in the order they happened, 9 windows into one room. And by the time we reach the last window, you're going to understand why ancient rabbis forbade young men from even reading one of these chapters out loud. You are going to understand why one sage who studied this vision died, another went insane, and a third lost his faith entirely. And you are going to finally see who that second figure is. This is not a story about a chair. This is not a story about a building in the sky. This is not a story about clouds and harps and soft golden light. This is a story about the single most dangerous thing a human being can do. Look directly at God. And the 9 men who survived it just long enough to try and fail, to tell you what they saw. Stay with me. We begin with a man asleep on a rock, with nothing to his name but the clothes he was running in. His name is Jacob, and he is a liar. He has just stolen his brother's blessing by dressing in goatskins and lying to his blind, dying father. His brother Esau has promised to murder him the moment their father is in the ground. So Jacob runs. He runs north alone into open country. And when the sun goes down, he is so far from anything safe that he has no pillow, no tent, no fire. He grabs a stone, puts it under his head, and falls asleep in the middle of nowhere as a wanted man. and the floor of heaven opens. You know the picture? A ladder or a staircase or a ramp. The Hebrew word is hard to pin down. Set on the earth with its top reaching into the sky, and angels going up and coming down on it. Traffic in both directions. Like a road that has always been there, and Jacob simply never saw it. But here is what most people miss. The ladder is not the point. Look at the top of it. The text says, the Lord himself stood above it. The first thing Jacob ever sees of heaven is not the angels. It is the one the angels are coming down from. And what does this liar do? This thief, this fugitive sleeping rough because his own family wants him dead. He wakes up shaking. And he says one of the most terrifying sentences in the book of Genesis. Surely the Lord is in this place. And I knew it not. And then, this is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. The gate of heaven. He found the door. He didn't go in. He only saw the door swing open and the traffic on the stairs and the figure standing at the top. And it was enough to leave him trembling on the ground, building an altar out of the very rock he'd used as a pillow. That is window one. And already you can see the pattern starting. A man at the lowest point of his life. A sudden tearing open of the sky. A figure at the top that the man can barely describe. And on the ground afterward, fear. Not comfort. Fear. Remember that, because everyone tells you that seeing God would be the most comforting moment of your life. The Bible tells you something very different. Pay attention to this, because the next window is one almost nobody knows is even in the Bible. Generations later, the children of Jacob are a nation, and they are standing at the foot of a mountain that is on fire. Moses has led them out of Egypt. The mountain is Sinai, and it is wrapped in smoke and lightning and a sound like a trumpet that gets louder instead of fading. God has told the people to stay back. Do not touch the mountain. Do not even let your cattle touch it, or you die. And then God calls a small group up, not just Moses. Moses and his brother Aaron, and Aaron's 2 sons, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. 74 men climb a burning mountain toward the voice. Now read what they saw, because it is one of the strangest sentences in the entire Old Testament. And they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of heaven in his clearness. There it is again, as it were. Like. They cannot describe the floor under his feet. It is like sapphire, like the sky itself made solid, blue and clear and burning with light from underneath. They cannot look up. They cannot describe him directly. So they describe the pavement under his feet the way you'd stare at the ground when something is too bright to face. And the text says God did not lay his hand on them, as if the natural, expected outcome of 74 men seeing God was that they would not walk back down that mountain alive. And the miracle, the mercy, was that this time he let them live. And then comes the line that breaks every Sunday school painting you have ever seen. Also, they saw God and did eat and drink. They had a meal on the mountain in the presence of God. They saw the thing that should have killed them, and instead of dying, they ate. Sit with how strange that is. The same God who said, "Do not touch the mountain or you die," brings 70 elders up to the top and shares a table with them. Terror and tenderness in the same breath. That is the God on this throne. He is not safe. And he is not cruel. He is something far harder to hold in your head than either one. But it gets stranger, because two of those men, Nadab and Abihu, Aaron's own sons, who ate that meal in the presence of God, would be dead within the year. They would offer strange fire before the Lord. Fire he did not command, and fire would come out from the same presence that had fed them and consumed them on the spot. The same fire that gives the meal can take the life. The men who saw the most can fall the hardest. Hold that thought. You will need it before the night is over. Window 3. And now we are in a throne room for the first time. A real throne, a real court, a real session of the government of heaven in progress. And it is happening because two kings want to start a war. The prophet's name is Micaiah, son of Imlah, and he is the prophet nobody wants to hear from. Two kings, Ahab of Israel and Jehoshaphat of Judah, are deciding whether to go to battle. Ahab has 400 prophets telling him exactly what he wants to hear. Go up, you'll win, God is with you. But Jehoshaphat asks if there is one more prophet, and Ahab actually says it out loud. There is one, but I hate him because he never prophesies anything good about me. They drag Micaiah in. And on the way, the messenger who fetched him leans in and gives him the smart advice, the safe advice, the advice that would have kept him out of a prison cell. All the other prophets are saying good things, so you say good things too. Get in line. Read the room. And Micaiah, who has nothing to gain and a great deal to lose, looks at him and says, "As the Lord lives, whatever my God shows me, that is what I will speak." Now watch what happens, because the next words out of his mouth are not safe at all. He tells them what he actually saw. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left, a throne, a seated king. And around him standing the entire army of heaven, ranked left and right like a royal court in session. And Micaiah hears the court deliberate. He hears God ask, "Who will persuade Ahab to go up and fall in battle?" And he hears a spirit step forward and volunteer to be a lying spirit in the mouths of all 400 of Ahab's prophets. Stop and feel the weight of that. Micaiah is standing in a room with two earthly kings and 400 professional yes men, and he is telling them, I have seen the actual throne, the real court, and the 400 of you are being used as bait. They threw him in prison for it. Ahab went to war anyway. And a random arrow, fired by a soldier who wasn't even aiming, found the one gap in Ahab's armor and killed him exactly the way the man on the throne had said. Here's what nobody tells you about that story. The throne of God is not decoration. It is not a symbol. It is a seat of power that is actively running the universe while you argue about whether it exists. Micaiah saw the meeting where your fate is decided, and he was the only honest man in the room. So look at what we have so far. 3 windows. A fugitive sees the gate. 70 elders eat a meal under feet of sapphire. A hated prophet sees the war room of heaven. And in every single one, the people on the ground are not relaxed. They're not soothed. They're undone, afraid, silent, or thrown in prison for telling the truth about what they saw. Now, before we go deeper, and we are about to go much deeper into the visions so intense that ancient Israel put an age limit on reading them, I have to stop and say one thing directly to you. If a channel like this one is new to you, and you've made it this far into something most people scroll right past, do me one favor. Subscribe. Not for me, for you. Because the next 3 windows are the ones the early rabbis called dangerous. The ones they said could break a person's mind, and you do not want the algorithm to bury this halfway through. Tap subscribe, tap the bell, and stay in the room. We are about to meet a prophet who saw something so overwhelming that for the rest of his life he could only describe it in the language of, as it were, like the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. We are going to Isaiah, and then we're going somewhere far stranger than Isaiah. Window 4, Isaiah. It begins with a death. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. King Uzziah had reigned more than 50 years. He was the only king most people alive had ever known. The throne of Judah had just gone empty. And in that exact moment, danged the year the earthly throne emptied, Isaiah is shown that the real throne was never empty for a second. The Lord is sitting high and lifted up, and the hem of his robe, just the hem, just the train, just the bottom edge of what he is wearing, fills the entire temple. You cannot see him. You can only see how much room the edge of his clothing takes up, and it fills the building. And above the throne are the seraphim. Now hold that word, because most people have heard it and never been told what it means. Seraphim. In Hebrew, it comes from the word seraph, to burn. The seraphim are the burning ones. These are not soft baby angels with little wings. These are creatures on fire, and each one has 6 wings. 2 to cover their faces, because even they cannot look directly at him. 2 to cover their feet, and 2 to fly. 4 of their 6 wings exist for one purpose: to hide. Even the burning ones shield their eyes from the one on the throne. And they are calling to one another, and here is the word that should make the hair stand up on your arms. They cry, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts." 3 times. Holy, holy, holy. And you need to understand something about Hebrew to feel the weight of this. Hebrew has almost no way to make a superlative. There is no easy word for most or best or highest. To say something is the greatest possible version of itself. Hebrew repeats the word. Good, good. Deep, deep. So when the burning ones say holy 3 times, kadosh, 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 they are not stuttering. They are reaching for a degree of holiness that the language cannot otherwise express. And in the entire Bible, this is the only attribute of God ever spoken 3 times in a row. He is never called love, 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 or power, power, power. Only holy, holy, holy. As if holiness is the thing about him that most overflows the edges of human language, and the building shakes. The posts of the door move at the sound of the voice, and the house fills with smoke. And what does Isaiah, the prophet, the holy man, the one chosen to see this, what does he do? He falls apart. Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. I am undone. The word means ruined, cut off, destroyed. this is a good man, the best man in the country, and the second he sees the king, he is certain he is about to die, because his mouth, the mouth of a prophet, is filthy compared to what he is looking at. And one of the burning ones flies to him with a live coal taken from the altar and presses the burning coal to Isaiah's lips and tells him his sin is purged. Here's what most people miss. The fire that should destroy him is the fire that cleanses him. The same coal that would burn an ordinary man is the thing that makes him able to stand in the room. Remember the strange fire that killed Aaron's sons? This is the other side of that fire. To the unclean who come in their own confidence, death. To the broken who cry, I am undone, a coal to the lips, and a commission. Same fire. Different men. But Isaiah is not the strangest window, not even close. Because the next prophet didn't see the throne sitting still in a temple. He saw it moving. He saw it coming for him across the sky on wheels. His name is Ezekiel, and he is a long way from home. Ezekiel is a priest, but there is no temple for him to serve in, because he is in Babylon. He is one of the exiles, dragged hundreds of miles from Jerusalem and dumped beside an irrigation canal called the Shabar, in the flat, foreign heat of what is now Iraq. He is 30 years old, the age a priest was supposed to begin his service, and he is sitting beside a ditch in a conquered people's land with no altar, no temple, no nation, and no reason to think God is anywhere near him. And then he looks north, and a storm is coming. Now I want you to understand something before I describe what he saw, because this is the vision the ancient rabbis were most afraid of. There is a teaching in the Mishnah, the oldest written collection of Jewish law, that says you must not expound this chapter. The chariot vision of Ezekiel, even to a single student, unless that student is wise enough to understand it on his own. There was a tradition that you should not even read it until you were old enough to handle it. And the Talmud tells the story of 4 sages who tried to enter the deepest mysteries of this kind of vision, what they called the orchard. One of them died. One of them went insane. One of them lost his faith and became a heretic. And only the 4th, Rabbi Akiva, came out whole. The Jewish people treated Ezekiel chapter 1 as something that could literally break the mind of a person who stared at it unprepared. So now, stand beside the ditch with Ezekiel and look north. A whirlwind, a great cloud, fire folding in on itself, and a brightness around it. And in the middle of the fire, something the color of amber. The Hebrew is chashmal, a glowing metal like electrum, like molten bronze catching the sun. And out of the fire, 4 living creatures, each one with 4 faces, a man, a lion, an ox, an eagle, each one with 4 wings, feet like burnished brass, and they move like lightning. They dart and return, back and forth, fast as a spark jumping a gap, and they never turn, because with 4 faces they never need to. And then he sees the wheels. And this is the image that has haunted human beings for 3,000 years. Beside each creature, a wheel, and a wheel within a wheel set crossways so it can roll in any direction without turning. And the rims of the wheels are high and dreadful, and the whole rim, all the way around, is full of eyes. Wheels covered in eyes that go wherever the creatures go, because the text says the spirit of the living creatures is in the wheels. Here's what most people miss about those eyes. Ezekiel is a refugee. He is in a conquered land, beside a foreign ditch, certain that God is back in Jerusalem, hundreds of miles west, and that being dragged to Babylon means being dragged out of God's sight. And the very first thing God shows him is a throne that can roll in any direction on wheels that are covered, completely covered in eyes. The message is not subtle. There is nowhere you have been carried that the throne cannot reach, and there is nothing in the dark of your exile that those eyes have not already seen. The God Ezekiel thought he had left behind in Jerusalem had just rolled his throne right up to the ditch in Babylon, and over the heads of the creatures, a firmament like terrible crystal stretched out, and above the firmament in the likeness of a throne like a sapphire stone, and on the throne high above the likeness of the appearance of a man, fire from his waist up, fire from his waist down, and around him a rainbow, the same kind of rainbow that comes after rain. Did you hear how Ezekiel says it? Not, I saw a man on a throne. He says, the likeness of the appearance of a man upon the likeness of a throne. He stacks the qualifiers because every single word is too strong. He will not say he saw God. He says he saw the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And then, like every single one before him, he ends up on the ground. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face. Now here's the part that almost no one knows, and it is the most devastating image in the entire book. Ezekiel sees this glory, this throne, this fire, and a few chapters later, he sees it leave. He watches the glory of God rise up off of the cherubim, move to the threshold of the temple in Jerusalem, pause at the door, and then lift up and depart, hovering over the city, and then gone. The most terrifying thing in the book of Ezekiel is not the wheels covered in eyes. It is the moment the wheels turn and carry the glory away from a temple that no longer wanted it. God on the move, God leaving. The throne is not bolted to your building. It can roll. And in the saddest chapter of Ezekiel, it rolls away. And this is where it gets remarkable. Because the next man to see the throne does not see it in a temple and does not see it in exile. He sees it at the end of time. Window 6. Daniel is an old man now. You know him as the boy in the lion's den, but by the time of this vision, he has served under empire after empire. He has outlived kings. He has interpreted the dreams of the most powerful men on earth, and now, late in his life, he has a dream of his own. And in the dream, he sees thrones, plural, set in place. And then he sees the one who sits on the central throne, and the name Daniel gives him is a name found nowhere else quite like this in the Bible, the Ancient of Days. In the original Aramaic, Attic Yomen, the one who is old beyond counting, older than time, older than the first day, his garment white as snow, the hair of his head like pure wool, his throne like a flame of fire, and the throne has wheels, and they are burning fire, an echo of Ezekiel's chariot 100 years before. From a man who may never have read a word of Ezekiel, a river of fire pours out from in front of him. Thousands upon thousands minister to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stand before him. The court is seated. The books are opened. Judgment is in session. And then, pay attention to this, because this is the open door I told you about at the very beginning. Daniel sees a second figure. I saw and did the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven and came to the Ancient of Days. One like a Son of Man, a human one, coming on the clouds, which in the Bible is something only God does, and he is brought before the Ancient of Days, and he is given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all nations should serve him, an everlasting kingdom that will never be destroyed. Two figures near the throne, the Ancient of Days seated, and one like a Son of Man, coming on the clouds, receiving an eternal kingdom. Daniel can see him, Daniel can describe him, but Daniel cannot tell you his name. He just calls him one like a Son of Man, one who looks human but comes the way only God comes. Hold that figure in your mind. We are almost to the moment he gets named, but first, a quick word. Because we have crossed the 3/4 mark of this and you are still here, which means you are not a casual viewer. You are the kind of person these stories were written for. If anything in this has moved you, here's the one thing I'd ask. Down in the comments, tell me which of these 9 windows hit you the hardest. The fugitive at the gate, the 70 who ate with God, the glory rolling away from the temple. I read them, and the answers people give will surprise you. And if you know someone who is afraid right now, afraid of dying, afraid of what's on the other side, send them this. Because the last 3 windows are about exactly that. They're about what people see at the edge of death and at the edge of what a human mind can survive. Window 7. And the throne for the first time is seen not by a prophet in a vision, but by an ordinary man, with his eyes open in broad daylight, with rocks already in the air over his head. His name is Stephen, and he is about to become the first person ever murdered for following Jesus. He has been dragged before the council. He has preached a sermon that enraged them. And as they gnash their teeth at him and pick up stones to kill him, the text says, he looked up steadfastly into heaven, and heaven opened, and he saw the glory of God, and he saw Jesus. But look at the detail, because it is the detail that changes everything. Every other place in the New Testament describes Jesus seated at the right hand of God. Seated. The work is finished. He sits down. But Stephen does not see him seated. Stephen says, "Behold, I see the heavens open and the Son of Man standing on the right hand of God." Standing. The Son of Man. Daniel's exact phrase, one like a Son of Man, is standing. As if he has risen from the throne. As if the King of Heaven has gotten to his feet for the death of one faithful man. As if when the first martyr falls, the one on the throne stands up to receive him. They covered their ears. They rushed him. They threw him out of the city and stoned him to death. And as the rocks broke his body, Stephen looked into the open door of heaven, saw the standing figure, and said, "Lord Jesus, receive my spirit," and fell asleep. Do you see what just happened? Daniel saw one like a Son of Man and had no name for him. Stephen sees the Son of Man standing at the throne, and he has a name now. He calls out to him by name. Lord Jesus. The unnamed figure beside the throne is getting closer to being named with every window we open. And look at what the throne does to Stephen on the way out. The very people murdering him said his face in that moment was like the face of an angel. He is being executed, and he looks radiant. He even prays for the men throwing the stones. Lord, Do not hold this sin against them. The same prayer Jesus prayed from the cross. That is what the throne room does to a dying man. It does not make him bitter. It makes him shine. He saw the door open, and the fear of death simply left his body. Window 8 is the strangest of all, because the man who saw it refused to describe it. Paul. The Apostle Paul, who wrote a third of the New Testament, who argued with philosophers and stood before kings, and never once seemed at a loss for words. Paul writes, almost against his will, about a man he knows who was caught up to the third heaven, caught up into paradise. And there he heard, and this is Paul's own phrase, unspeakable words, which it is not lawful for a man to utter. Think about that. The single most articulate human being in the early church reaches the throne room and comes back and says, I am not going to tell you. I heard things a human mouth is not permitted to repeat. The most talkative man in the New Testament goes silent because some things, once you have seen them, you understand were never meant to be flattened back down into human sentences. Paul saw it and chose the one thing none of the others chose. He chose to say nothing. And that silence tells you more than 1,000 descriptions. The room is so far beyond us that the most honest response sometimes is to close your mouth. And there's one more thing about Paul you should hear because it is almost unbearable. In the very next breath, Paul says that to keep him from being lifted up with pride over what he had seen, he was given a thorn in the flesh. Some affliction he never names, some pain he begged God 3 times to remove. The man who saw the third heaven spent the rest of his life with a wound he could not get rid of. He saw paradise, and then he limped, as if to stand that close to the throne and come back to earth is to carry both things at once forever. The glory you cannot describe, and the ache that keeps you humble enough to have seen it. So now we arrive at the last window, the 9th. The final time anyone in the Bible sees the throne of God. And it is here, in this room, that the figure who has been standing unnamed beside the throne since the days of Daniel finally, fully gets his name. An old man is on an island. The island is called Patmos, a bare rock in the Aegean Sea, where the Roman Empire dumped its prisoners. The old man is John, the last living apostle, exiled for his faith, probably in his 90s. The last man on earth who'd actually leaned on Jesus at a supper table 60 years before. And on the Lord's Day, he hears a voice behind him like a trumpet, and he turns, and he sees a door standing open in heaven. And the voice says, "Come up here." And John goes through the door, and immediately he is in the room. The room, the same room. There is a throne, and one sitting on it. And John, the beloved disciple, the writer, the man who knew Jesus best, John does exactly what every single one before him did. He reaches for like. The one on the throne is like a jasper and a sardine stone to look at. There is a rainbow around the throne, like an emerald. There is a sea of glass before the throne, like crystal. There are voices and thunders and lightnings. There are 7 lamps of fire burning. There are 4 living creatures full of eyes. Ezekiel's creatures 600 years later, and they never rest, day or night, saying the same 3 words Isaiah heard the seraphim say, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty." And there are 24 elders on 24 thrones, and they fall down, and they cast their crowns before the throne. Every window we have opened tonight is in this room. The fire of Sinai, the sapphire of Ezekiel, the threefold holy of Isaiah, the court of Micaiah, the thrones of Daniel. It is all here, all at once, confirmed by the last apostle. 9 men, 1 room, and John is standing in it. And then John begins to weep, because in the right hand of the one on the throne there is a scroll, sealed with 7 seals, the scroll of history, the title deed to everything, the future of the world, rolled up and sealed shut. And a mighty angel cries out, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose the seals?" And no one answers. No one in heaven, no one on earth, no one under the earth. No one is worthy. And John, the last apostle, standing in the throne room of God, breaks down and weeps much, because there is no one worthy to open the book and read it. And one of the elders touches him and says, "Stop weeping." And here it comes. Here is the name. "Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, hath prevailed to open the book." And John turns to look for a lion, and there is no lion. There is a lamb. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne stood a lamb as it had been slain. Stop and feel this. The figure who's been standing beside the throne since Daniel saw him on the clouds. The one Stephen saw rise to his feet as the stones fell. The one like a son of man that no early prophet could name. He is standing, just as Stephen saw him stand, in the very middle of the throne. And he is not a lion, he is a lamb that has been slain, a lamb still bearing the marks of its own death, standing alive in the center of the government of the universe. The unnamed figure has a name. And the name is not what 1,500 years of throne visions would have led you to expect. He is not a warrior. He is not a conquering general. He is not a blinding column of fire. He is a slaughtered lamb, alive, holding the scroll no one else in all creation was worthy to touch. That is who was standing beside the throne the whole time. Now I have to do something, because we have looked at fire and wheels and burning creatures and a sea of glass, and there is a danger that you walk away thinking this is all just spectacular imagery, beautiful and strange and far away. So let me bring it close. You cannot look directly at the sun. You know this. You were told as a child. And the reason is almost stranger than the warning. The sun is an ordinary star, a medium one, nothing special in the catalog of the galaxy, sitting 93 million miles away from you. And if you stare at it directly for even a few seconds, you can burn a permanent scar into the back of your eye. It's called solar retinopathy. And here's the part that should unsettle you. The retina has no pain receptors. You don't feel it happen. You can blind yourself looking at the sun and never feel a thing until the damage is already done and permanent. A medium star, 93 million miles away, and you cannot face it. Now read the sentence God spoke to Moses, the man who had already eaten a meal in his presence and lived. When Moses asked to see God's glory directly, God said, "Thou canst not see my face, for there shall no man see me and live." That is not a God being stingy. That is a God telling you the truth about physics before you had the word for it. If you cannot look at one ordinary star without burning your eyes, what did you think would happen if you looked straight at the one who lit every star in the sky and called each one by name? The seraphim cover their faces. The burning ones look away. Ezekiel can only manage the likeness of the appearance. Paul refuses to speak. They are not being dramatic. They are telling you the most honest thing a creature can say about its creator. He is more than your eyes were built to hold. And that is what makes the Lamb the most staggering thing in the entire Bible. Because the one you cannot look at, the one whose mere holiness knocks prophets to the floor and whose glory rolls away on wheels of fire, that one made a way for you to come into the room anyway, not by becoming less holy, by becoming a lamb, by stepping down off the throne and into your skin and into your death and back up onto the throne with the wounds still showing, so that the door Jacob saw but never walked through would finally be a door you could walk through. So let me give you the 3 things to carry out of this room. The first is this: the throne is real and it is occupied, and it has never once been empty. The year Uzziah died and Judah's throne went dark, Isaiah looked up and the real throne was full. Every empire that has ever told you it was in charge, Egypt, Babylon, Rome, every power in your own headlines tonight. Micaiah saw the room where their fate is actually decided. You are not living in a universe that is running itself. There is a throne, and it is not empty. The second is this: everyone who ever saw that throne fell down. Not one of them strolled in casually. Jacob trembled. Isaiah came apart. Ezekiel hit the dirt. John wept. The closer a person got to the holiness on that throne, the smaller and more undone they felt. And that is not a bug. It is the most truthful experience a human being can have. If your idea of God has never once made you feel like Isaiah felt, undone, unclean on the floor, you may be looking at something, but it is not yet the throne. And the third, this is the one I want to leave ringing in your ears. The figure standing in the middle of that throne, the one every prophet glimpsed and could not name, the one worthy to open the scroll of all history when no one else in heaven or earth could. He is a lamb that was slain. The most powerful being in existence chose to come into the room bearing the wounds of his own death on your behalf. You do not have to climb Jacob's ladder. You do not have to survive Ezekiel's fire. The Lamb already walked down the stairs to find you. So here is my question for you, and I really do want your answer below. Of all 9 windows, Jacob at the gate, the 70 who ate with God, Micaiah in the war room, Isaiah undone, Ezekiel and the wheels, Daniel and the Ancient of Days, Stephen as the stones flew, Paul who would not speak, John and the Lamb, which one stopped your breath? Which one are you going to think about tonight when the lights go out? Tell me. I read every one. They all reached for the same word. Because what they saw was too much for the words they had. One day the book of Revelation says, the door will not just open for a vision. It will open for good. And on that day you will not need the word like anymore. Because you will not be hearing about the room. You will be standing in it. And the Lamb will be on the throne.